Okay, so we start off Unit 2 looking at the age of absolute monarchies, but remember the Dutch are different. They do not have an absolute monarchy. They have stadtholders, one of which is William of Orange, who the Orange family comes back to save England a little bit later. One of the biggest ones we have, of course, is Louis XIV. He had to fight against the Fronde from when he became the king at age 4, so he moved out to the Palace of Versailles, and he had the revocation of the Edict of Nantes because he was majorly Catholic, and so he got rid of all Lutherans and everybody else. He also had the Edict of Fontainebleau, which made him absolute monarch, and he had many different advisors, Bossuet, Cardinal Mazarin, and of course Jean-Baptiste Colbert, who brought him Colbertism, which is his version of gold takes everything power. Meanwhile, the British are exploring all over the place. They take over South Africa, and the white people who live in South Africa are called Afrikaners. They also set up the British East India Company, which supplies most of the world with their tea and their seasonings. Back on the continent, we have the agricultural revolution, which allows more people to eat better food. Jethro Tull and the Seed Drill was majorly a part of this, and the enclosure movement, which changed the landscape of England and Europe forever by putting fences around fields. Because people are eating better, they can work better, and we have the Industrial Revolution. The domestic system, where women made their goods in the house, was starting to go away to factories, because we had the spinning jenny and the water frame. Remember, first Industrial Revolution is mainly about textiles, and that is centered in England, especially Manchester, England. Coming from there, we have the Enlightenment, which is where we just start thinking about things, because we don't have to think about going to war, so we can think about things. It mostly happened in salons, where people sat around and had good chats about deep questions like, is there a God? We have a lot of different players that are important here. One of the biggest ones, of course, is Adam Smith. He believed in laissez-faire economics. We have Hobbes, who believed in absolute monarchy and wrote about it in Leviathan. We have Mary Wollstonecraft, who was fighting for the ladies, along with Olympe de Gouges. Cesar Beccaria says we shouldn't go to prison, and if we do, we should become better at it. Voltaire is just talking about all sorts of things. Denis Diderot wrote an encyclopedia. Who else is important? Baruch Spinoza says that we should fight for the Jewish people. Jeremy Bentham said we should all be socialists, and then he put his head in a box, and his body is sitting in England, stuffed like a mummy. We had deism, which says, yes, there is a God, but God is a clockmaker, and he just put us on the earth and he let us go, and he's not controlling us today. Baron Montesquieu had the spirit of the laws and said that the law should be fair and just to all people. And yeah, Jacques-Louis David, who was painting all sorts of things. And John Knox brought religion to Scotland. We also had enlightened absolutism, where we had the three major enlightened leaders: Frederick the Great of Prussia, Joseph II of Austria, who was Maria Theresa's son, and Catherine the Great of Russia. They all three worked with the enlightened thinkers, but they really weren't all that enlightened themselves, because they still believed that they were absolute monarchs. But all three of them wanted the partition of Poland, because Poland was never allowed to become their own country. Meanwhile, in France, things are starting to go bad. We have the Parlement, which is the government. We have Abbassius, who said, what is the third estate? The third estate is everything. But what do we give the third estate? Nothing. And then, as the French Revolution started, we had the Levée en Masse, which said everybody should join the military. People weren't happy about that. And then we arrested the king and we beheaded him, and which started the Reign of Terror, which was led by Robespierre and the sans-culottes. Remember, these are the hangry working class long pants people. And the Jacobins, who said that Paris should control all of the revolution. This led to the September massacres, where we were killing all sorts of wealthy people out in the countryside. And again, the Reign of Terror is where we just arrested people for anything at any time and cut off their heads, kachunka. And that didn't work, because in the end, Robespierre got his own head cut off. And then we were like, well, what do? We have no leadership. So we bring in the convention, which is the government with 5 leaders, and of course 5 leaders never works, because we need one person to be in charge. But we just got rid of a king, so we don't want one person in charge. But this doesn't work. So then we try the consulate, which is another type of government, but it was so tricky that nobody knew exactly what was going on with it. So we got rid of that, and we were just begging in France for one person to show up. And who shows up? Napoleon! And he makes peace with Russia with the Treaty of Tilsit. Remember, that was done on an island in the middle of a river. He started the continental system, which made France become the major leader all over the place, finally, and he went off and he captured most of Europe. But they didn't like that, so they caught him and they didn't kill him, but they put him on an island for a while, and then he escaped because France wanted him to come back. So he ruled for another 100 days, where he came back and it was like, ta-da! But the Quadruple Alliance was against him. That was Prussia, Austria, Britain, and Russia. He can't fight against that. And so they captured him again at Waterloo, the Battle of Waterloo, which of course is an ABBA song. And then we put him on an island. But then we were sick of all this not feeling, and we wanted to feel things again and have art and beauty and emotion, because we were so emotionless with all this rationality of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution. So we got Romanticism, which, remember, is not like all about like romance, but about feelings. And so we got Goya painting the 5th of May. We got Lord Byron writing love poetry to both men and women. We had Eugene Delacroix, which is liberty leading the people. We had Methodism, where religion becomes whatever you want it to be. And we have Goethe writing more poetry, because poetry is romantic. And then that all ends, we end all of this with the Congress of Vienna, which really takes off in the 3rd unit.